Very quickly, my name is Avanash. I'm an electrical engineer. I work at Meta. And I used to work at Google. So I was with Google for 7 years. And for the past 1 year, I've been working at Meta. I'm not a software person. I'm a regular engineer who works at the back end of these data centers. So think about it. All this media, where does all that sit? It's on computers, on compute servers, on storage servers. And now you basically have AI to it, right? AGI, AI, which is artificial general intelligence, artificial intelligence. Now, two things I'm going to mention: power and water. That's it. Two elements, right? Essential. So think about it, right? When this all started, we were measuring the way computers worked in terms of floating point operations. I mean, if people are software, they would know the number of operations a CPU does. That's gone. We now measure power consumption in terms of actual power, electrical power consumed. So it's kilowatt, and now kilowatt is not enough, it's megawatt. So typical data center, let's talk about a Google data center. It's 80 megawatt, one single building. So it's 80 megawatt of power consumed every second, every minute, every hour, every day, 365 days a year. So it's 100, let's say 80 megawatt of power used continuously for 1 year. And again, it never stops. So since I worked at Google, I'll just tell you that a Google data center is allowed to go down in service for 5 minutes and 44 seconds cumulative for the entire year. Why? Because YouTube, search, maps, you cannot really have any downtime. Now, to power 80 megawatt, right? Think about 1 megawatt is roughly 16,000 homes. So you can do the math. 16,400 US homes multiplied by 80 megawatt. That much power is being consumed every minute, every second. In a house, at least you step out, you switch off lights. In the evenings, you have lights. This is not the case. It's called what we call as base loaded. So a data center is actually consuming power every second, or whatever. If you come up with, remember, if you go down like minute, fractions of seconds, you actually go back to minutes, right? So power, that's one thing. Second is water, cooling. So a server, backend of that server is heat. So all these processes are really working very fast. They emit heat. Now you have to basically absorb that heat. But what do you use? We use water. So the water now absorbs all that heat, right? And you have to basically take that heat to another water loop, right? So that the inside, so think about a data center, it's like a big warehouse of computers. It's emitting heat. It has all these small fans and all that, correct? And now all that heat basically gets transferred to water. That hot water goes outside to another thing called heat exchanger. You can Google all this, by the way, and as to like what is a heat exchanger. So now hot water from within the data center transfers its heat to another water loop. That water loop basically, which is like, again, that water loop goes outside, and outside any data center, any power plant, any petrochemical plant, you'll see these huge towers, nuclear power plant. All that, those are called cooling towers. You are taking basically gallons of water, hot water, and just spraying them through these large towers to send the heat to the atmosphere. Okay? So with me so far, right? Now, think about it. 1 megawatt is 6 million gallons of water every year. 1 megawatt. Okay? I'll let you do the math offline. Google has roughly 9,000 megawatt, which is 9 gigawatt of data center deployed. To date, Meta has roughly 3.5, maybe 4, half of Google's. All that is basically to serve YouTube, Maps, right? Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and I don't know, TikTok and all that, right? And cloud. But what is really scary here is, now you add AI to it, right? All these chips then become hotter. So there is something called thermal signature. The amount of thermal energy that is emitted per millimeter square on a chip. So if you look at NVIDIA, if you look at some of these chips that Google and Meta are making, you can literally fry an omelet on it. It's that hot. Well, what do you need now? You need more water. Now literally, it's like you have to basically circulate water right on the chips. And eventually we'll have to immerse the entire tray in oil, which is called dielectric. So growth in social media, add AI to it, the thermal signature of everything is growing. Because you want more and more pace, then it means that you have to basically go up in power. It generates more heat. You have to basically have water. So water and heat is what really we are thinking of. And now recently, if you read in the news, Amazon actually acquired a nuclear power plant. So earlier we used to tap into the grid, right? I want to build a 160 megawatt data center. It was easy. I will basically tap into the grid and get that power. That's no longer the case. Now these people are thinking of building 500 megawatt, 800 megawatt of data centers. Why? Because it's social media growth with AI enabled. And that's scary. That's scary because if you actually tap into a 1 gigawatt power in a particular state, what is the rest of the consumers going to do? And the grid, which basically connects everything together, right? That is going to make it basically becoming like very strained. And that's the idea. And when we talk about wind, solar, that's nothing. You just can't offset the amount of power that this nation needs and eventually the world needs. So when I think about AI, I'll just give you an example. Google built roughly 580 megawatt of data centers in Iowa and Oklahoma, actually Iowa and Nebraska. That entire capacity was bought by YouTube. YouTube said we need all of that, and that was 2021, thanks to COVID. So YouTube consumed 380 out of that 570 megawatt, just like that. And that is the growth. So the scary part is like, you think about the front end, fine. But there is a back end effect, which is water and power, which is really very, very scary. So if you really want to get this perspective that anytime you are basically on your social media, there is water being consumed and there is power being consumed, and we don't quite have all of that available, right? Because if you want to generate power, nuclear is probably the way to go. Hydro, we need water, and water basically surfaces everywhere. And then there is emissions, right? At the end of the day, this is all carbon footprint, right? So if you want to basically reduce the carbon footprint impact on the world, we'll have to really draw some parallels. I used to worry about a 40 megawatt building. That was just 2016. Today I'm told basically go and build a 200 megawatt building, 240 megawatt building, and two such buildings which is 480 megawatt. You can do the math offline. It's really scary. And then I'll tell you just one last thing is like whenever I used to look at a row of servers, give and take 500 kilowatt, that whole thing is now like 2 to 3 megawatt. So if you go inside a data center, it's going to be an oven if you don't have the right amount of water in it, right? So growth in social media, 3 billion Facebook customers, monthly active users, and Instagram, I think it's like 1.4. Now you keep adding AI to it, all these GPUs and all that will be used, more power, more water, and that impact is something that nobody's really ready to talk about, discuss. But all I'm going to say, folks, I'm at the back end, you guys are all at the front end. It's pretty scary. I'll stop there.